Hello everyone and welcome to Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. I am in a lovely kitchen and I'm with Charles Harold Barry and his wife Catherine Harold Barry. And to get a lay of the land and exactly where we are, I'm going to turn now to Catherine. So Catherine, tell people, where are we?
Okay, we are in North Cork, farming at on the southern slopes of the Ballyhora Mountains. We're on the foothills of them. Part of the Ballyhora Mountains would be a special area of conservation, foraging area for the hen harrier. So we have those on the farm, and then the farm stretches down to another special protection area, Kilcoman Bog.
How old is the house? When was it built?
I think 1760, something like that, yeah.
And has the farm been in the Harold Barrys since around that time?
It's actually been in the Barry family since the Normans. So, and then Richard Harold came from Limerick and married Mary Barry that was here. She was the only daughter of John Barry.
We were talking earlier, and Catherine mentioned it there, that you inherited from an uncle, was it, or a great uncle?
Well, my grandfather grew up here, and his elder brother, Charlie, then he got the place. And my grandfather went off then, and
you mentioned before that you'd been milking cows in England, and that when you came here, I think it was in 1986, that you also really wanted to go milking cows, but there was an issue there.
The issue was there was this place was full of red water. You know, I wanted to milk cows when I first came, but the place was kind of overgrown and very little fencing. And it was full of red water as well, and I know I started with no money, so feasibly it wasn't possible. I basically just I concentrated on reclaiming land and putting in water pipes and putting in fencing. And basically I kind of just kept the house watertight and tried to, and the sheds in the yard that had leaky roofs, and I just put sheeting on the roofs so that at least they preserve there's some lovely old buildings and things, so I just basically tried to keep everything preserved and tried to concentrate on the priorities, and what should be paying. So.
And then Catherine, Charles has been talking about the history of the farm, but in terms then of the evolution of the farm and making the transition to organic, when did that start for you?
We applied in 2021, and I suppose before that Charles had been farming along regen lines. He was always a bit concerned. He never liked using chemicals too much. And one of the main concerns was how to manage the NP and K. So having followed the likes of, I suppose, there was Alan Savory, Gabe Brown, Greg Judy, Jill Slatton, and then the NOTS courses, he got a better understanding of the soil biology and how all that affects the NP and K. So he was happy then when it opened up in 2021 to try and make that transition to the organics.
And I think a lot of people have felt that way and always felt uncomfortable using chemicals, and that kind of spurred them on. But there is, I know, a big farm to see, and you've got a lot going on as well. So we might head outside to the farm and see what's going on there.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Charles, we've come out of the farmhouse and we've been coming down this laneway, and we've stopped because I mean, it is quite an expansive area, but you have your two Angus bulls here and you've pulled them out from the main herd. But what you're doing, which is absolutely really fascinating, is you're doing mob grazing, but you're doing it in maybe some would say a very simple way, but a very purist way as well, in that all of your Angus herd, I can see them up far ahead on the hill, besides your two bulls, are grazing together. But what's unusual about that is that they're in one group, but you don't wean the calves. So explain to me the mob grazing concept. Explain to me exactly what you're doing.
Right, we're doing mob grazing basically now because it's the winter. I'm trying to not skin the grass off, not to clean it off totally. I'm trying to half graze it, and then so that I'm hoping then that it'll be back. It'll be available to graze again in 60 days. Well, it might be 80 days even. That if you skin it off, it would take a lot longer for it to come back. So basically, I'm trying to move them around. I have my long paddock, and then I cross it with. I have permanent wires, and then I put across temporary wires across like a ladder system.
And how many cows are up there on that hill? I can see lots of little black dots, but how many in total?
There's 170 cattle there, but there's only 64 cows there at the moment. But I have their calves that were born last May, and I have their previous year's calves, so their weanlings are in there too. And
you don't wean. You found that the cow will push off the previous year's calf when she has her new calf.
Yes, that's I just let them push off, as you say, the previous year's calf, and it can sometimes be a gradual process. Sometimes when they bag up and they have the calf, sometimes it used to be a problem in the past. You used to have some cows with lots of milk, and you'd have almost too much milk for the new calf. But now the old calf will drink some of will actually help with that, because they'll reduce down. I know it might sound very unconventional, but there are people in America doing it and stuff. So, and it happened to me in the past years ago. A cow when I had more cows, and I didn't used to have a lot of cows, and a cow might calve, and then she might calve again. She might get in calf again or something, so I'd seen it happen before with occasional cattle. And then when I saw it on YouTube, people are doing it in America. So I said I'd give it a go, and it's working out fine.
And you're not worried about the old calf taking all the colostrum, for example, before the new calf is born. So colostrum would be the first milk, for anyone that doesn't know, and there's lots of antibodies in it that a newborn calf would kind of need.
The calves, cattle are all super healthy, and I take them, right through to kill weight, and I've done it, and it's fine. The calves seem to get enough colostrum. I leave everything to nature as much as possible.
And in terms then of worming or cow kind of maintenance or anything like that, or mineral boluses or anything, how much intervention do you do, if any?
For the last 2 years, I haven't wormed the cows. I haven't given them any worm. I used to give this Ivomec every year before I went. I used to give them an annual shot of Ivomec Super every year. But for the last 2 years, I haven't given them anything, and they're fine. They seem fine at the moment. I obviously monitor things all the time, but at the moment they're fine. Also, I'm not worming any of the cattle at the moment, and I vaccinate if I had to for a scheme or something, but I'm not actively looking to vaccinate.
And you said you finish them all yourself. Are you aiming for a certain age when you finish them?
We sent to Good Herdsman this year in Care, and we had. I probably could have finished them a little bit earlier. I was kind of surprised this year. I thought, with the way the spring was and everything, I expected them not to be thriving as well. So I could have gone a bit earlier, and also with booking into the factory and all the rest of it. Anyway, they went at 25 to 26 months, and they were well ready to go to the factory then. So I reckon you could, if you had your eye on the ball and everything lined up, you could definitely get them at 2 years. You could probably have them gone at 2 years.
And are you, even on an organic system, are you finishing wholly on grass, or are you using anything? Totally on grass.
And I'll show you some of the killed sheep when we go back in. Some of them were R4Ls, and they didn't see any meal in their lives.
That's one of the highest grades that there is, R4L.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'll show you the sheep and say, they never saw any meal.
That's incredible.
And the cows didn't get any meal, and the calves, the cattle in their lives didn't get any meal. So totally, and then they're outside all the time.
That's a lovely system though for you, for organic as well.
It's a lovely system from an ease of, I know I'm extensive, but it just makes life easier and simpler. And also, if you're introducing things like meals, you never know what you're bringing in. You never know what's in the meals or whatever. Anyway, cattle, certainly with the Angus breed anyway, they don't need meals to finish them.
And I know you said extensive, but for anyone thinking of doing this at home, how extensive are you? Do you have any idea of your livestock unit per acre, for example?
Well, it's about a cow to the hectare anyway. Yeah, something like that. So
just to give people an idea, and your rotation length, you were saying it's 60 to 80 days, depending.
Yeah, So I'm not making any silage now. So I'm that's total grazing. I'm making a bit of hay, but I'm not making any other. I've got a small bit of hay that I give to like the bulls and things like that. Sometimes it's more convenient with a small group to, so yeah. And
there is a piece of machinery in front of you, and I'm going to take a picture of it later because I've seen them in England, but I've actually never seen one in Ireland, and it's really cool. So this is so explain to people what's its name first of all.
This is called it's called a bale unroller.
Okay.
And this one it's a Burge bale unroller made in Devon. And it's made by a farmer who's an engineer as well, but he's copied the design by the Greg Judy in America is promoting, but obviously he's not too expensive to bring them back from America.
And now, so you said before that you weren't making any silage, and that'll pique people's interest because obviously that's the main kind of food stuff in wintertime for most farmers to be feeding cattle. But you are feeding hay, so is the idea then that you put a hay bale on this and that it unrolls over the field and the cattle eat it, so the bale isn't in one place?
The idea of the bale unroller, you can see it on YouTube. Greg Judy does it on YouTube. Basically, the idea is that if you put a round feeder in a field, you can only get 20 cattle around it, and you have to and also wherever you put it, they will really damage the ground in that ring around it, and that ground won't come back then for it could take 9 months before you get grass to regrow in those areas. If you and it does a lot of damage. And also with ring feeders, you're always going to get that waste a little bit in the middle and the bit around the inside of the edge, and then also with a ring feeder, if you to put a bale into a ring feeder, you're normally going to have to bring it out with a tractor, and that does damage again. So it's all about trying not to. And
poaching, the cattle standing around the ring feeder, that can be a real issue as well.
The damage, the damage on the outside. So the idea of the bale unroller is then it unrolls the bale as you want to unroll a bale in a certain direction, as that it rolls out as long as possible. You want to go out as far a distance across the field as possible, and Greg Judy's on about it. He'll roll out along a ridge if there's a bit of a high bit of ground on the field. He'd particularly do those, and it rolls out over long. So all the cattle, basically, you soon. This only takes say if you had 300 cattle, it would only take 6 bales to feed them for the 6 bales would feed 300 cattle for the day, especially if they've got another bit of pick. Now I'm not doing it yet, but I got it because if I got caught with my grazing all year round, I have a little bit of hay, as Greg Judy says, a bit of insurance, that if you've got really adverse weather conditions or if you were just caught for that little bit of grazing or whatever in the spring or something, you could supplement. You could always buy in hay if you wanted, organic hay or whatever, and you can supplement if you had to. But I haven't done it yet. But I just got this machine this year, and it's got a thing for you can stick on an attachment for unrolling water pipe as well. So I find that handy as well.
That's brilliant. Yeah, well, I will hop back on the quad and we'll have a look and see some of these lands. Charles, we've come further up the hill and we're looking at your herd of suckler cows and their calves now, and you've just given them a fresh area, or your helper has given them a fresh area. So how much space do they get per day?
Well, at the moment they're getting two. We worked out we give them we adjusted according to how much grass cover is there, and we're trying not to overgraze the ground. But at the moment these cattle get about 2.4 hectares of a day. So and if we thought they were getting too little, we'll increase it a bit. And if we thought they're over, we can adjust it basically using the field. I use the field area measure app, the free app, and I can see what area they're getting.
I was going to say your lines are very straight. I am very impressed. But you mentioned before that you're not skinning the ground, and I can see that. But it's actually in quite good condition even when you're moving the cows on. Is that important to you, keeping the ground in good condition, not getting it muddy?
Oh yeah, no, I don't. Mud is going. Mud isn't a solar panel, so you want a bit of, you don't want to, and also if you're making it muddy, it's going to take much longer to come back. So I and that's why you're trying to. It might look messy at times. That's why you're trying to half graze the grass, so that it has a chance. It has some solar panels left on it, some leaf there, so that it's going to come back faster than if you took it all. And
you're talking about solar panel, but what you're talking about is treating the grass as kind of an energy conversion tool.
Yes, yeah, well, that's what it does, really, isn't it? It takes with the water and the power from the sun, and then it gets the nutrients from the ground, but the sun is they're having the leaf there and the chlorophyll and all that. That's what you're getting your energy from, isn't it? Are
you ever concerned, because we have this idea in our heads that we need farmyard manure and that we need slurry to fertilise the ground, and if you're out wintering all year essentially, or have the cows outside all year, you don't have that slurry and farmyard manure. Are you worried about not having that?
Well, I do. The slurry there.
You're pointing at a cow pat.
I'm actually allowed to spread it all year round. There's no restrictions on my slurry spreader because it's the cows that do it for me.
It comes on 4 legs.
Yeah, and that's the way I view it. When they come back next, there'll be dung pats there, and they'll hopefully dissolve. They'll be reabsorbed before you'll be back next time, and there'll be a different. The chance that the pats will be in a different place the next time, and with the mob grazing, you're concentrating the area that they're applying it on. They're not wandering over a big area and maybe camping in one area. You're making them eat a certain amount in an area and defecate in that area and then the next day they're on into a new area of ground where they're not having to graze amongst their defecations, which all helps with the with the worms and all that. They're not spending days in the same paddock with their poo, basically. Yeah.
The cows are obviously in front of us. Just above the hill, you were saying you have sheep. So how big a flock do you have, and what kind of breeds do you have?
Yeah, I have roughly 100 at the moment. I've done I've been culling hard recently, and I've got some EasyCare rams now. So I'm hoping to maybe breed up some more sheep that'll be easier on the wool side of it.
Because shearing, there's nearly no point in shearing them anymore. There's no value to the fleece, is there?
No, the fleece, last time I checked, the fleece is roughly 15 cent a kilo or something. I don't know if it's changed, but that's the area, and it's hardly worth. It's not worth collecting for that. You're better off. I actually use it I leave it back on the ground and let it grow grass. It seems to grow grass.
It's a funny way for things, considering that wool once upon a time used to fund like cathedral buildings and everything like that. It was such a valuable asset, and now it's not anymore. But in terms of the sheep themselves, what value do you find that they add to the farm, or where do they come into the enterprise?
Right, the sheep, they'll, if you got any ragwort and things like that coming on, they're great to eat that. They actually like it, and it doesn't seem to affect them as much as it would. So they're good that way, and they're smaller feet, and they kind of level ground.
Do they lamb outside, or do you bring them in?
Outside as well? Yeah,
okay.
I basically what I do is I have the 3-strand. I have this Kiwi Tech wire at the moment, which is 3 strands of wire, and basically for lambing, I give them. I have a block, and I let whatever lambs that day in the block, because they're moving on every day. I just let them lamb, and then I move the ones that haven't lambed away from the ones that are lambed, and then I leave the ones that are lamb behind, and then they get strong. The lambs get used, so I'm able to keep moving. And then I might leave a tail of sheep and lambs behind, and then when they get stronger, I start accumulating them back together again.
And do you finish them all yourself?
And I finish them all myself. And I've got into what I'm doing now because I'm doing the daily move. I'm finding that I actually don't have to. I'm actually not worming the lambs at all, and I tried it to see, and I found I can get away if I'm moving them on, and they stay cleaner from the point of view of maggots and all that. If they're if you're moving them on, they stay cleaner. And also what I'm trying to make simple. I haven't castrated the ram lambs or tailed them. I haven't tailed anything now, and they're staying clean they stay clean with the tails, and they're not getting now. It might be partly the breed, because I've got clins. I've gradually changed breeds over the years, but I don't really like Suffolks, because Suffolks seem to get worse. Suffolks have found that the lambs aren't very. Look, I could be. Lambs. I didn't find Suffolk's lambs very hardy to get up and drink, and also they seem to be more wormy anyway. But look, I haven't had Suffolk. I haven't had Suffolk rams for years.
And long term, will you always have sheep on the farm, do you think?
I think I'll always have a certain amount. I'll always keep a certain amount. Because as I say, that they're good to eat certain. They're good to eat certain weeds and things. That they'll eat. They'll eat certain plants that the cattle wouldn't eat.
So I guess, Charles, we're coming towards the end of the podcast. But before we finish up, do you have anything interesting that you might want to tell the listeners before we do finish?
Yeah, well, on this on the hill land that we're here now, I actually reclaimed it in 1997, and since I reclaimed it gradually, I used to see the water, and before I reclaimed, I used to see water running off it in rivers, sort of streams running off in heavy rain, and now I'm noticing that it's not. If you get heavy rain like we got the other day, you're not seeing the rain. You're not seeing the water run off anymore. So it's definitely it's soaking in now. So I'm noticing from the regenerative grazing type and then a mob graze that it's growing. The roots are going down or whatever's happening, and it's soaking water. I've also noticed from the mob grazes that are getting. I'm noticing dung beetles, and I'm noticing. The dock beetles as well, the bright green beetles that eat the docks. I've noticed that, and when I'm walking around, sometimes there's a few stones left on the hill here after it was, after the reclamation years ago, and I never bothered because I wasn't cutting silage off. And if I'm walking across and I pick up a stone, very often I'd see ants underneath the stone, and sometimes I have to put the stone back if I feel there's a big enough population of them. So I'm noticing that as well. So I'm noticing a lot more of insect biodiversity as well now too.
That's lovely. Well, thank you very much. For everyone listening, you've been listening to Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. We're walking back down the hill now, so I better not trip. Wait, I'm going over wire. the middle of my outro. So if you have been listening to Organic Matters, you'll know we'll have another episode in about 2 weeks' time. And if you want more information on organics, go to www.irishorganicassociation.ie. But from me, Hannah Quinn-Mulligan, traipsing across a hill in North County Cork, thank you very much for listening, and we'll have you back again hopefully in another 2 weeks.